today because that might be a problem if it's finance, so it never is a problem.
We would keep you all day.
Exactly. So I was telling him a story about what is man's pride. And Charlene said, I would love to have more time to just listen to your mother and ask questions. Is Charlene here yet?
Yeah.
There you are. And I said, well, let me check on this. So I pick up the phone knowing she's coming tonight. And I don't tell her this whole thing. I just say, what if you come and do is talk? And we just talk about things about your experiences. She goes, okay, well, here we are. Even with Tina and Kitty Bell, Kitty, my great friend, and for all of you that went to Dr. Bell, please introduce yourselves. That is Dr. Bell's wife and daughter. So they're great examples of his leadership.
Well, it was an absolute pleasure, I can tell you that.
Oh, good.
So, absolute pleasure and honor to
So
be able
glad.
to be there.
Well, it's a pleasure and honor to be associated anyway with Vietri. So,
Amen.
it's a double road.
All right.
It is.
So, thank you. So, early years with Mama, you know, I think with everybody, with all of us and with our children, each person has a different experience, especially when you're a child, because you're focused on what your needs are and what you want. So for me, the things that immediately came to mind of being with Mama were making presents for my friends, going to fabric stores, looking at patterns, cutting out patterns while she made the little outfits for my 10 years younger brother, because I never was a good sewer, but I loved to be doing things with her. Scouts, cheerleading, making things. It was always about making things and creating things, or looking at fabric. So, you know, who knows why we're doing the things we're doing today. Being sick and having Mama there, that bourbon with sugar, and when you were about 5 years old for tickle coughs. I wrote down poison ivy, because I would get it all over my body, making her favorite chocolate cake, running errands. And those were kind of those early year memories. Daddy being someone that traveled all the time in tobacco in those years, no emails, no faxes. You waited, you know, a certain day that he would call through the operator, so it was countdown for him to call, or getting a postcard. So he was kind of our hero because he was the man and was gone a lot. So when he died so young, and then when we started Vietri, it gave us this unique situation of becoming friends and having a lot of time with Mama. And y'all get to hear all these stories or be with her because Francis and I are always telling these stories, these wild stories. So, and how we all call her Mama. Somebody just recently, I mean, for many of you in the warehouse, you don't know a fellow who used to work here that we were just crazy about, and he was in the warehouse, and he would call Mama, Mama, as all of y'all do, and somebody said, Paul said to him, now, should you be, it was early years, should you be calling her Mama? And he goes, she's the Mama of Vietri, isn't she? And she is, she still is, so it's great. I wrote down a couple of questions, Mama, that
You didn't give me ahead of time?
I didn't, but I think you know these answers. And one I'm going to start with is Lee Frankstone, because this is when he knew you were coming, and I'd done it so quickly and he wasn't being here. He said the thing that has really made a difference in his life is your philosophy about worrying.
Well, if you can do something about it, worry about it and get busy. And if you can't have any influence on it, put it aside.
Just let it go.
Just let it go. No point in worrying about something you can't help.
And that's what we heard always, and I think that is just such a wise thing, that we all worry is so American made, and we all worry about things we can't change.
But how do you do that, Lee?
Bill said, how do you do that, though?
You have to concentrate and do it, just like when you have to stop smoking. You just concentrate and do it.
So tell them a little bit about stopping smoking.
Well, I smoked I went to college when I was 16, and my father told me that if I didn't smoke or drink in college, he'd give me $1,000. Well, I know that's not much money today, but in 1940, it was a lot of money. And that was not gonna be any problem whatsoever, because I didn't do either one, didn't want to do either one. Got to college, we had a big commons room where all the freshmen went, and everybody smoked. And we went to the movies, everybody smoked in the movies. It was the cool thing to do. So needless to say, I picked that one up immediately. And spring break came, and we all went to New York on spring break, unchaperoned. Now, that was really quite something. And excuse me. When we came home, my mother and father very cleverly waited about 2 weeks, and then they came up to school to see about how was the trip. So we could drink beer, ale, and light wine. That was acceptable. So there was a big hotel downtown in Lynchburg, and we went, he made a reservation, took all of us that had been to New York, sat at a big round table, and the waiter started pouring the champagne. And after about the second and a half glass, we were glass-eyed. And then he asked the big question, now tell me about New York. And we could hardly wait to tell him, as I asked him if he would please light my cigarette. So the next morning when they came out to college, I can see him right now walking across the campus, and I was walking to meet him, and I said, really blew it, didn't I? He said, really did. Good fashion.
So jumping up 50 years or 55 years came a moment when you had to go to the doctor to stop smoking.
Back to how you stopped smoking.
Pardon, see, that's, you'll excuse me. Went to the doctor, and he said that he really thought I ought to quit smoking. I knew that. I'd been doing that for years. Lee and I tried, and we knew in our heart of hearts that we really weren't going to stop, but we'd try for 2 or 3 days and be ornery and fuss and carry on. But when he said it, I thought, I really should. And so I said, well, then I've smoked my last cigarette.
And the reason was you had this catheterization, and they said to you
My
your
heart was fine. So
Right.
I figured I was in good shape. I just needed to give my lungs a break. So I just quit. And it wasn't easy, but I changed all of my smoking habits in that. I didn't drink coffee in the morning anymore, because that was the best cigarette of all. And then when I worked in the yard and got tired, I'd sit down and have a cigarette. Well, I'd get tired and I'd go in the house and do something. So that was the way I got away from that. And about 6 weeks after I stopped, and I'm not saying it was a piece of cake at all, but I had stopped. I had a next door neighbor who was 92, who smoked like a smokestack. And I woke up one morning and I was in a fit of nicotine. So I went over to her to let me bum a cigarette. And she said, indeed not. I'm not going to give you a cigarette. And I said, well, Nancy, if you don't give it to me, I'm going to get in the car and go buy a whole pack. She said, all right, if you promise that's the only one. I said, I promise. Could not wait to light that cigarette. Took that big drag down to my big toenail. I started coughing and sneezing and crying and trying to find air to breathe. And that was it. So it worked. I'm telling you, if you make up your mind to do something, you can do it. If you don't do it, it's because you just haven't decided you're going to do it. And you have to decide. You just have to put the brakes on your own self. So
There we are.
the little good at Gumdrops just drinks whiskey now. She doesn't.
So here's something else that I found interesting. We work together in this company, and it's men and women, but pretty strong, independent women that work with really fantastic men. You were making a comment and describing to me man's pride. What is a man's pride from your perspective? And is there anything that equals that for a woman?
I don't know about whether there's anything that's really quite like it, because I think women, because they are mothers and they are raising the children the most, I think they have a lot of latitude on pride. I mean, they'll give and take it. It doesn't bother them as much. But a man's pride is something, it's the most special thing in his life, whether he knows it or not.
And what is it?
It's the way he feels about himself, and the way the impression that he feels he's given to other people. And you just don't mess with it unless you compliment it. You don't, I think it's the biggest hurt a man can have, that his pride is harmed. Don't you men agree? Isn't it pride, really, just male pride? Would you call it something else?
Yeah, they don't wanna talk, yes.
No.
Thank
Don't
you,
even
Marty.
answer the question. But,
But you mean it in a good way.
oh, of course, it's fine. It's what makes a man different from a woman, and an outstanding person. I was recently in an incident where two of my children had a little to do.
Not us.
No, no, what you?
This
Not
time.
this time. My grandson had a friend at the beach with him, and the friend was being he was just bothersome. He was talking too much, and we love him dearly, but he didn't keep his mouth closed quite enough. And he was chatting, and my son, who didn't play cards with us all of our lives because he was much younger, was really trying hard to play a game of gin rummy. I mean, he was concentrating and serious, and he needed to study and think about it. And here was this little boy, yak, 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 Mr. Garvey, yak, yak, yak. And Paige just got up and called his name and said, "Would you just hush a minute? I'm trying to play this hand. Now just hush." Well, his wife didn't like the way he had talked to this little boy, and so she joined in by fussing at him. Well, here was the family, and it was just about the most inappropriate place. You just don't fuss with your mate in front of anybody. It's a private affair. You don't talk in front of your children about it, and you certainly don't talk in front of your siblings about it. You say it on the side. And I've found out early on that when I had to speak to him about something like that,
You mean speak to Daddy?
if you're not too mad, I'd go up to him, put my arm around his shoulder and whisper, say, "Excuse me," and whisper in his ear and say, "That's enough of that, please." And pat him like I loved him dearly, but that minute I didn't. I could have squeezed his head on. But I didn't say it out loud. Fussing in front of other people as a couple is a very dangerous thing to do, because it gives a very bad impression to other people, and it can damage the man's pride, because you put him in an untenable position. He can't fuss back. At least he doesn't want to fuss back. He's been brought out into the open for doing something that he shouldn't do. He knows that, but he doesn't need to be told in public. So be kind to those sweet fellows, because it all pays back. And the extra things that my children used to say, "I don't know why you put up with that from Daddy." I said, it all pays off. I mean, he pays it back in one way or another, and it does. Maybe not that way, but in other ways. So kindness and love are very gentle things that happen.
So with that, describe love. How do you describe love? Let's try it.
It's caring for someone more than you care for yourself.
Whether it's a friend or a marriage or a relationship.
Wherever.
Right.
It's that person is the most important person in your life. To me, that's the best I can do. Anybody want to volunteer? Got a
It's
better
your
one?
show, it's your show.
I'm gonna learn.
Any other questions? I've got plenty.
But it sounds like that you were the running of your household, you were the ultimate single parent, so to speak, because
Really,
your husband
truly.
did travel so much.
Yeah.
Was that a hard thing for you?
Well, no, my husband was off, making money so he could support us, and you accept something like that, because if it has to be, it has to be. And he was in the tobacco business, and he sold tobacco to cigarette manufacturers the world over. So he would go off, for a couple of months sometimes. And then we got it down to maybe 6 weeks max, but, 'cause
At one time.
at one time, yeah. And so he was gone a lot. I was the only parent for a long time. No, I didn't really have any trouble with that. One thing that I felt when I was raising children, that I find a lot of young people raised to say today, that absolutely amazes me is that, well, I'm afraid they won't like me. That never entered my head. I didn't give a hoot whether they liked me or not. I was trying to raise them. And they had to do what I said. And why was because I said so. And that was my answer. I didn't have to tell them why I did anything. But I never was afraid of, are any of y'all sort of nervous about your children when you punish them? Can you understand it? I can't understand it, but anyway, I'm glad none of you feel that way. Because it's very unnecessary. It's not that I raised such wonderful children, although I did, in my own mind, but you bore them and you birthed them, and now you have to raise them. And to raise them, you have to have good things to do and bad things to do, and you have to make a good job of it, and you can't worry about how they feel, because they've got to feel like you feel, or else they're in trouble.
Was there an adjustment period after your husband came back? For
Was that
long?
what?
An adjustment period?
No, only one time, and that was he'd been gone, I think, 2.5 months. And
One
he
trip.
had worked himself to death, and he was exhausted. I mean, he would sit up to take the plane cars, just, all of his nerves shaking. He was ill, really. But the rest of the time, and it wasn't easy for him too. I mean, here he goes off on a trip, and he's living in the best hotels, and everybody, yes, Mr. Gravely, no, Mr. Gravely. And he comes home and he's got 4 children around him. And we can't, yes, Mr. Gravely, no, Mr. Gravely, like he'd been used to. But we did the best we could. We got along all right, pretty good, don't you think? Okay.
So the life lessons are so wonderful to hear, but some people might think, well, that is wonderful, maybe coming up in your time where
True.
it was a
It's different.
situation where the woman stayed at
Both-
home with the kids
And both
more so.
today, but both
How do
working.
you feel like that changes
I think it
things?
changes a lot. I think the husband has to really help her more. Then in my generation, he went to work and he came home and we waited on him. But today, with both of y'all working and children to raise, it has to be a dual job. And the children have to feel that it's a dual job too. I mean, they have to be as comfortable with daddy as they are with mama.
Do you think the pride thing for a man
I
meant
think
more
absolutely, and
then,
that's the thing that
or-
worries me, because I think the pride bit is constant. It's because it's the nature of the man. He's head of the household. He has a wife and children that he's proud of. And he picks an image of himself that he wants to portray. And that's why you just are kinder to him, and you always get paid back the same way if you are. I mean, you don't think of woman's one-upmanship. There's no game in this sort of thing. It's a relation. It's like it was a person you didn't know, and you treated them a different way from a person that you did know that you were slightly irritated with. Well, you just don't have to do it in public. Save it for the bedroom where you can really scream if you want.
So it may be more important now than even then, because they are feeling like the women are doing more, almost maybe like the
Well, you
men
women
have
are
to-
saying you wanna
Yeah.
do more, and you wanna make more money and everything, and that's perfectly all right. I totally agree with that, and I think with our date it'll happen. If it hadn't already begun to happen, it has, I think. But, in our day, it wasn't. We were secondary to the father. No matter what we did, as far as being in the family, we were still secondary, and it suited us. I mean, we were used to it. So we didn't have any gripe. And I think you girls do have a gripe today, 'cause you are, some of you making more money than your husbands. And you're working hard and you care about it. It's just a shame you have to work, I say. You work enough. I mean, I worked one time in my life right after I got out of college, and I think I worked for $20 a week, salt and tickets, tobacco tickets. And I knew right then, that was not for me. Send me home and let me have babies and look after them.
And I think, it comes from the very beginning of hunters and gatherers as men, and the women being home and keeping things organized. I mean, things, that basic primal instinct is the same, and I think it's a good lesson for women who are exhausted and working hard, and for men that we do discuss our differences and cherish that, honor those differences, Bill. So I'm sorry for getting mad 2 days ago.
So Susan, you just mentioned hunters and gatherers, so that gives me one quick chance to mention one of my favorite Vietri warehouse sale stories. I was carrying a box of things that these two ladies had bought for their car, and I heard that they were exulting over the good time they'd had at the sale, and one said to the other, "This makes me feel like a hunter-gatherer."
Let them keep on. Any other questions? Oh, I have one more. So I was driving to work today, and I was listening to this new channel on my new car, which is my favorite, and it is Oprah.
Of course.
And she's talking to a gentleman who we all know, and I can't remember his name, he's a singer, and he's 60 years old. And he was saying that he goes to a lot of places where Tony Bennett is too, and that they talk a lot. And Tony Bennett is now 86 years old, still singing all the time, and he described it as, his passion for music is just like he just got started, and he's talking about the future of music like he's got all the years left in the world. So my question to you is, with all the years in the world left for you, if you could amble and go out and venture out, what are some things you would do right now?
I haven't bothered to think. Well, I think one thing I do a long time ago, I used to, I painted a little. I'd go in the dining room after y'all went to school and set everything up, and the next thing I knew, it was time for lunch, and I used to love it. I'd do that. I tell you the truth, I have had such a good life and such a happy life that I can't think of anything particularly different that I do along the way.
So paint a little more.
Just paint, just,
There's still time.
I don't know, Bill.
Mama, talk a little bit about your philosophy about families.
Oh my Lord, just a little topic.
Yeah, just a little topic.
Well, I don't really know what to say about families except you have to work with a family. And there are always times when somebody's acting up and everybody's mad at them. And I know I've quoted this a lot of times. You don't have to like your brother, but you've got to love him, because he's your blood kin, and you've got to stick by him and look after him the rest of his life. And that, I just believe in families sticking together. And I hate seeing families that have breaks in them, that somebody doesn't like anybody and they don't associate anymore. That's so superficial and so unnecessary. You simply forgive your family for things that they do, unless they are law breaking or something like that. But you forgive them because you've got the same blood running through you, and by golly, you might need them one day.
Right. So,
Do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. A lot of those good things in the Bible.
Sam, can I ask a question?
Sure.
So Lee, when you think about Vietri, what, give us some of your thoughts about what's happened in these 30 years now, and
A miracle. A great big miracle.
and about your role in it.
Doing this?
Yeah, when you think about your role in it and how it came into your life when it did, and,
Well,
and what
it
you
wouldn't
learned
be
from
if Lee hadn't died. Incidentally, my husband's name was also Lee. No, because the three of us would have never gone to Italy for a trip without him, and it wouldn't be. It was almost like it was something to fill in for a wonderful thing that we'd lost. And it was. It was a wonderful thing when we started it, but we never, ever thought about it growing to these heights. I just marvel at it. I think all of you, and my girls particularly, that you have just done a fantastic job. And I feel that you're all happy doing it. That's what makes me the happiest. Just really, I'm just going to reiterate over that one, because that's the way I feel. I'm so proud of all of it. And he would be too. I just hope he is looking down and sees us.
and last night, we went to Memorial Auditorium to hear some banjo players, and one of the songs was a wonderful song that, I'll end with that saying. The saying was, "I wonder what he's thinking right now."
Yeah.
So, we think about that a lot. I wonder what he's thinking up there. He's proud of all of you, and he's certainly proud of Lee Gravely and the way that she, at 53, was a widow and carried on and led us to where we are today. So, cool. Life lessons with Lee Gravely.
I mean, it really is a little bit of a fiasco, but I just love seeing all of you, and I'm very proud that you came in to hear me.
As a little thank you, we have a small little gift.
Oh, my dear.
We're so happy to have you here
Thank
today.
you so much.
You
Oh,
might want to open it.
Sure, I might go on out,
Was Jeff like
I
at the
love the
concert?
way
Was it
you
his
tie
performance
them up,
last
and
night?
I love it. I
Jeff,
love
like,
the
wasn't
little-
his concert.
Oh.
Jeff missed it.
Oh, Christmas in March. Pull the bottom of it. Can you get it? Oh! Let's open it and have it right now. Thank you very much. And I know you knew about that.
That's my favorite chocolate. Yeah, exactly. All right. Thank you.